Hi, I'm State Representative Bruce Ayers, and as a state representative, I realize how important it is to keep my constituents informed of legislative matters we're debating upon on Beacon Hill. My office works with a lot of local, state, and federal agencies to help with constituent services. My guest today to talk about some federal matters is Congressman Stephen Lynch. Congressman, thank you for joining the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Bruce. Wonderful to be with you.
Well, you know, it's nice to work with your office. I know a lot of people will call my office, and in the discussions we have, some of it will float over to the federal matters.
Of course, yep.
To be able to talk to you and to reach out to your staff has been a big help.
Thank you.
I thought we'd just kind of start off the show. I know since you've been redistricted in the city of Quincy, you've been extremely active, but maybe for some of the viewers that might not know your background, if you could just share some of your past history.
Oh, sure. I think most people understand I was originally an iron worker with no intention of ever serving in public office, but I was elected president of the Iron Workers Union, and it got me active politically on behalf of the iron workers, and I decided to go to law school, and from there I ran for state representative in South Boston originally, and then when Bill Bulger left for UMass, I ran for state senate, and then when Joe Moakley passed away, a dear friend of my family, I ran for the United States Congress, and like you say, in this recent redistricting, I am just honored and delighted to have the responsibility of representing the city of Quincy in the United States Congress. So I know you've had a great history of representation in Quincy, going back to Bill Delahunt and Brian Donnelly, so there are obviously big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Well, it's great to work with your office and have an opportunity to talk to some of the viewers today about some of the federal matters. On your committees, Congressman, I know that you're on the financial services and the capital markets and also government reform. Can you talk a little bit about what the responsibilities are?
Sure. The way Congress works, there's 435 members of the House, and so we would get absolutely nowhere if you had to have an open discussion with 435 people. You serve in a body of 160 members,
That's right.
So it gets difficult. So the real work of Congress gets done in committee, and I happen to serve on the Financial Services Committee, which covers any matters regarding banks or banking, credit unions. It also covers housing. It covers Wall Street. It covers insurance. So it's a far-flung committee. And now I'm sort of getting close to the top in seniority on that committee, so I do a lot of work on housing issues and also on oversight. On the oversight committee, it's sort of a how would I describe it? It's a troubleshooting committee. Whenever we have problems anywhere in the world, we are the chief investigatory committee for the United States Congress. So I spent an awful lot of time in the Middle East. I think I've been to Iraq 14 times now, about to go again next month. Afghanistan 9 times. I'll go again next month. But generally, when we have boots on the ground somewhere, work closely to make sure that our people in uniform have the equipment and the resources necessary to do their job and to come home safely. And that's sort of where we're at right now. Especially in Afghanistan, where our withdrawal timeline is getting closer and closer. We're right now negotiating a status of forces agreement with the Afghan government for beyond 2014, and we've had great difficulty there in negotiating that agreement. We don't want our armed services people to be subject to Afghan law, which is very weak. We think they would be exposed to arbitrary prosecution. So we're having a sticking point over that. But recently there was a report by our commanding general there, General Dunford, formerly of South Boston, formerly of Quincy, that he has recommended that we either retain a force of 10,000 or that we drop to 0 and bring everyone home. So we're having that active debate right now. He seems to think that, and I agree with Joe Dunford, that in order for force protection to be carried out, in other words, to protect your own people, they probably need a minimum force of 10,000. However, if we're not getting the cooperation of the Afghan government, then bring everybody home by all means.
Yeah. You know, and I think we share the same philosophy with our soldiers. You know, if someone is willing to put their life on the line, fight for our country, they shouldn't have to return back home to fight the bureaucratic battles for housing, health care, college tuition. You know, these are the types of things that we want our soldiers to take advantage of. And I know that you're a big supporter of the Veterans Opportunity to Work Act. How does that play out in Washington?
Well, it's one of the few things I think that Democrats and Republicans agree on down in Washington, is that we should do the right thing by our veterans. So I'm encouraged in that respect. However, there have been budgetary pressures. This process called sequestration, where we are targeted to reduce our expenditures on the military side by about $600 billion over the next 10 years. So we have to do that carefully and in a way that that maybe reduces the number of expensive weapons programs that have not been productive, but does fund our military personnel. Mm-hmm. In other words, the housing, the education, the equipping of our men and women in uniform, that has to take priority. So we've done some of that work, and we've extended the benefits actually in some cases to our veterans. For those that the Veterans Benefits Improvement Act also not only does what the GI Bill did originally, but it looks at our veterans who have been out for a while, say age 35 to 65, and tries to identify training programs where we can help those who have spent a fair amount of time in the military transition to private industry. So we're working with the military right now. They're identifying 10 disciplines and job descriptions where we're going to try to match up folks coming out of the military into these 10 different areas. So that's an ongoing process. We have a pilot program going on right now to do just that.
Oh, wow. I received a call the other day from a senior citizen, and I just want to jump over to Social Security and retirement security. This senior was concerned, they depend on that check. It helps keep them independent, and I know that you're involved with the Social Security cost of living adjustment. What can we tell some of the seniors who are concerned about the future of the Social Security?
Well, we've got to make sure that we pay in. For a few years there, the Obama administration did not continue to. Well, they try to give a tax rebate to taxpayers in lieu of them contributing to the Social Security Trust Fund. So, while that might have been a short-term benefit to individual taxpayers, it necessarily reduced the amount of money going into the Social Security Trust Fund, which is not a good thing. So I voted consistently against diverting that money out of Social Security, because Social Security is viable as long as we continue to pay in. Right. That's how it works. You pay in while you're working, and then when you're not working, you are able to get those benefits. But so I have resisted any effort to cut back on our contributions, because that we'll have to pay for that later on, either in reduced benefits or a later year of retirement. Right now, I think the Social Security Trust Fund is in decent shape. I think we have to be very careful about plans such as the current administration introduced to cut back on contributions. I think that would hurt us. In terms of the cost of living adjustment, right now we have a formula that looks at a basket of goods. This gets a little technical, but it looks at housing, health care, it looks at food, transportation costs, and it tries to determine what the increase in the cost of living is for those people on Social Security. The problem with that is that in recent years, with the drop in the housing value, it's distorted the actual cost of living increases that our seniors are experiencing. In other words, first of all, most seniors are not in the housing market. They're not out, when you're a senior, you've already either bought your house or you're selling your house and moving into a smaller house,
Sure.
or you're renting. So by counting the increase or decrease in housing in that cost of living adjustment, it distorts the real cost of living impact on our seniors. So because housing dropped precipitously starting back in 2008, it had a downward pressure on the cost of living adjustment that seniors receive. For a while there, it was zero or a very minimal amount. Now that housing is starting to come back, the cost of living adjustment is more accurately reflecting what the costs for seniors are. But the big costs for seniors are, out-of-pocket expenses for health care, drug costs, prescription drug costs,
Sure.
huge. Food has continually, increased. Transportation costs as well. So now at least we're seeing more realistic numbers being generated by that formula. But I have argued that we should probably change that whole formula so that it really affects what seniors are facing and not what the general population is facing. If we were talking about a 30-year-old, yeah, I think buying a new home is a big factor in their lives. But when you're in your 70s, you're not out there in the market looking for a new home. You're
Right.
probably looking to scale back.
That's right. You want to downsize.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we're coming up on almost a year anniversary on the terrible Boston Marathon bombing. And I know Washington is working an awful lot with some of the Homeland Security. At the State House, having served on the Public Safety Committee, I know there's a lot of emphasis on securing our airports, our waterways, our reservoirs, our nuclear plants. It's a different world. Post 9/11, and of course the marathon bombings, our enemy no longer wears a uniform.
Right.
What are some of the steps that are happening down in Washington that we're doing to protect ourselves and support our first responders?
Well, I think that Mayor Walsh has, identified the upcoming marathon as a real priority. I'm going to run myself on behalf of one of the local charities in the marathon. I think that we've learned a lot. I don't know, I don't know how you can actually eliminate all the risk, especially when they talk about these sort of lone wolf attacks on large-scale events like the marathon. It's 26.2 miles. How do you provide security along every foot, every yard, every mile of that course? That's very difficult. But I do know we've learned a lot from our own experiences. As part of a congressional delegation, we looked at some of the foreign attacks. I went over to India, to Mumbai, and reviewed the attacks at the rail station there. We visited a couple of hotels that were attacked, the Oberoi and the Taj. So we're trying to gather information that would help us here at home prevent similar attacks in this area. But we've got work to do. We've got work to do, no question about it. We've got to be diligent. I think that we've tried to recognize from a funding standpoint the needs of our local governments. And I think we've done a lot in terms of training our personnel from a Homeland Security standpoint to make sure that we're in step with the latest developments and that we're anticipating whatever the next move might be on part of some of these terrorist groups.
Yeah. We're fortunate, too, to have such great collaboration, whether it's the city, the state, or some of the federal agencies when it comes to protecting our public. So I was just going to switch to the economy, especially during these tough economic times. As a small businessman myself, I know it's hard to you know, it's a tough time out there. We're fortunate in the city of Quincy. We've got a very active Chamber of Commerce, you know, that has an awful lot of events where you can network with other businesses. But, you know, with economic development and job creation, you know, I know you've been very supportive at the federal level, assisting us in the city of Quincy with all our future plans. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about some of the economic incentives.
Sure. Well, you know, I've worked with the South Shore Chamber as well, and you couldn't have a better champion in Mayor Koch in terms of trying to be aggressive in creating jobs and making sure that the city of Quincy is a desirable place for new businesses to locate and to helping those businesses grow once they're here. So he's been very sensitive to that. I think he's very pro-business. One of the things, a weak point, I think, in our economic program is that we continue to sign very bad trade agreements. I'm not sure how much people are aware of, but right now we're negotiating, or the President is negotiating, a Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a major trade agreement with some Pacific nations, including Japan, Vietnam, and others. And you know, from my own experience, I think we've done very poorly in terms of how we've negotiated those agreements. They're negotiated in secret, and then Congress is given a glimpse of them right at the end to vote up or down on those agreements, but we have no input as the negotiations go forward. I think that's a real mistake. You know, I was in South Korea recently. I actually went up to the DMZ as part of a congressional delegation. We spent a lot of time in South Korea. It's a modern nation, quite industrialized, very competitive, and I couldn't help but notice that. Now, I was in traffic for a couple of days there. It's a modern city. I think Seoul has maybe 8 million people. And, you know, I saw 2 U.S.-made cars in that country.
Did you?
Out of the, you know, hundreds of thousands of cars I saw in that country, I saw 2 U.S. cars.
Just 2.
One was the Ford I was driving in, and one was the car behind us with my security detail right behind me. So, and we have a free trade agreement with South Korea. Now, it's a similar situation when I was in Japan. I could see, I didn't see, well, our delegation had U.S. cars from the embassy, but I did not see any U.S. cars there. So it just, you know, when you walk out this door, you'll see Japanese cars, Korean cars, you know, German cars. We have an open economy, and why the hell is it that when we go to these other countries, we don't see U.S. cars? Because we're shut out. We're shut out. And so we've got to get smart. Look, I'm all for fair trade. I'm all for, you know, open trade, free trade. But I also want to make sure that we have an agreement that puts Americans to work. And we are kidding ourselves. We're turning a blind eye. So this whole idea of fast-track trade negotiations where they're negotiated in secret and we don't put Americans to work, that system's got to go. That system's got to go. We got to get back in the game here. They've had their chance where the U.S. trade representative gets to negotiate these agreements, and they're lousy. They're lousy for American workers, and they're lousy for the most part. If you look at the NAFTA that was passed, the North American Free Trade Agreement, you look at the number of the amount of crime and the lack of opportunity for the average Mexican citizen. It's just it's pathetic. So we've got to, you know, I think it was Clinton that used to say, look, if you find yourself in a ditch, you got to just stop digging, and that's where we are with our trade agreements. We've got to get smarter. It doesn't mean we back away from free trade, but we demand better terms in terms of what we get versus what we give. We've got a huge market here for foreign goods, and we should use that leverage to put Americans to work. It's simple as that.
Yeah. I just want to switch a little bit to the recent flood insurance. You know, it's a very hot topic, as you know, and I know you've been very active in it. The city of Quincy, I know you and Mayor Koch are going to have a community meeting to talk about the flood maps, the redrawn flood maps, and some of the increases in the insurance premiums. My office, along with yours, is getting a tremendous amount of calls from people very concerned. I spoke to someone just the other day, and she never got a drop of water in her basement, even during the blizzard of '78. And
right.
Now she's in danger of being in that zone.
Yeah.
And people are concerned to see what they can do to take some protection from these increases.
Okay, here's what's happening. As you know, after Katrina and Hurricane Wilma and then Superstorm Sandy, because of those series of big storms, we basically depleted the flood insurance trust fund. That's the fund that we give out as relief to those areas that are impacted. What FEMA is trying to do right now, and the flood insurance trust fund is trying to recapitalize the fund, get money back in there. The problem is that they're trying to do it in a very short period of time, and the way they're doing it is they're expanding the number of people who have to pay flood insurance. That's their plan. Get more people paying in, regardless of whether or not you have a real flood threat to your property. So we are opposed to the technology and the science that they're using to determine the flood map. We are opposed to the acceleration in rates. You can recapitalize the flood map trust. However, you can do it in 2 years, or you can do it over 20 years. You can build it up gradually. That's the process that we'd like to see happen. But it has become ridiculous. I represent Scituate, Cohasset. I represent Quincy, Weymouth, Hull, areas that are going to be dramatically impacted by this remapping process. And we hear from a lot of people that they have never, ever had water in their basement, even during the blizzard of '78. And so you would think that experience, the actual flood experience, would be a relevant factor in the new maps, but it is not so far. So we've got a relief bill I'm a lead co-sponsor on in Washington to delay the implementation of the new rates for 4 years, to require FEMA to do an affordability study to make sure that we're not forcing people out of their homes. Ironically, this was, the idea of flood hazard protection was to keep people in their homes. So I think we're at a better place. We've got a meeting scheduled. Mayor Koch and I are co-hosts, along with yourself and the Quincy delegation, to answer any questions that people have. But we're in there fighting. Yep. We're in there fighting to try to make sure we get a fair deal on this. And I think that collectively, they've already delayed by 1 year the Plymouth County maps because they were so poorly drawn and there are so many challenges. I think we're in a good place to question the science they used in Norfolk County as well, which would help the city of Quincy.
Great. Military Academy nominations. I know a lot of seniors and parents of senior high school students, whose son or daughter may be interested in attending some of these academies, whether it's the Army, Navy, Air Force, Merchant Marines. Part of the process is to get in touch with a congressional office as part of the application process. If someone is interested in that with their son or daughter, what steps can they take? Or maybe you could touch upon that.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, the ideal time or the optimum time to apply for the military academies is when you're in your junior year of high school. So we have in my district, I have Academy Day, which we hold at East Braintree High School, East Braintree Middle School. And we bring in all the academies, Annapolis, West Point, Coast Guard Academy, Merchant Marine. We bring all of the recruiting officers in there. We also bring some of our cadets back who have gone through the process. So we just completed our round of one of the great honors I have is appointing young men and women to the military academies. We just appointed 4 Quincy residents. We nominated, excuse me, not appointed, but we nominated 4 Quincy residents to the military academies. I think we had one from Weymouth, one from Braintree in this last group. So we encourage people, call our Quincy office on Hancock Street or call the Boston office. Catherine Shea is our point person at the Quincy office, and also Bob Folks runs the academy program out of the Boston office as well. So, and that's 617-428-2000. But we are very happy. It's a great honor, you know, to have young people willing to serve the country, their country, and also we try to get parents involved as well, because whenever a young person makes this type of decision, very important to have the family on board. It's a big commitment. You know, it's 4 years at the academy and then 5 years service afterwards. So it's a 9-year commitment. It is it's an experience without parallel. I mean, the academies are incredible. It's a very significant expense by the military, by our country, to educate young people and get them ready for that type of service. So it really is a remarkable opportunity, and I encourage our young people to seek out that opportunity.
Great. Well, they're telling me our time is just about up.
Okay.
I want to close by thanking you for being a guest on the show. I realize your schedule is awful busy, flying in and out of the state, and you know, I appreciate the working relationship we have with your office. You know, it's a big help for both our constituents. I think we share the same goal, making sure that we can give our constituents the best constituent service available, whether it's a state or federal matter. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. And if I could just say, you know, I'm in Washington 4 or 5 days a week, and you're a perfect example, Bruce. You do a great job. You are my partner in government here. You let me know what's going on, you know, what the priorities are. I couldn't do a good job as a member of Congress without having you, you know, represent us in Quincy as a state representative. And it's a joy working with you. It really is. You really do have the interest of the community at heart, and you pay attention to a lot of the local issues that I might miss if it were not for your service. So I appreciate having a hard-working, responsible elected official like yourself in the spot that you're in, and it makes my job easier having you there.
Well, thank you, Congressman. You know, and to the viewers, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you'd like some more information on some of the topics that Congressman Lynch discussed today, please contact my office. If you'd like to meet with me personally on any issue, I hold office hours in the district every Friday from 9:30 to 11 by appointment. Or you can visit us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also YouTube. In closing, I'd like to thank Betty Campbell for the opportunity to film today's show, and I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you.